Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Reviews with Tyberius D. It's been a quick minute. Today we're going to be talking about a love movie. Love romantic story. Wow. I can't believe we're here already. Fantastic. Anyway, yeah, I am going to be talking about A Walk to Remember. It is a movie from 2002 that is a romantic drama and a little bit of a coming of age story. And I'm going to be getting into the nitty gritty about this one, about why I like this one more than almost any other love movie in a general level. So, yeah, if you want to actually listen to this one, stick around and roll the intro. All right, everybody. So, I will apologize straight out of the gate. This is not going to be one of those reviews that's the level of Kreia quality, which I know a lot of you were happy with and thought were really cool. But in a general sense here, some of these are just going to be ones that I want to talk about, that I want to get involved with, but I don't want to go overly over the top. And it's not that this movie is a bad movie, and it's not that I want to like diminish this movie, but one, it's a little bit out of date. But two, a lot of it is in the more the meaning and the thoughts, and this is not necessarily anything that I need pictures for and all that. So I'm just going to put all that to the side. I'm just going to chat about this, and I'm actually going to read the plot from the Wikipedia, not because I don't remember this movie, but it's been a while since I've watched it, and I just don't have any major desire to go after that. So anyway, why cover this movie? Well, number one, if you're a dude, you're a lady, you probably have some kind of thing that you have to deal with love movies. Either you like them and you want to watch them, or you are forced to watch them because, romantic partner wants you to. Now, I generally don't like most love movies because they're just too perfect, I guess is the way you want to put it. And I'll give you an example. Like a lot of time, folks, particularly the ladies, like to talk about The Notebook, and The Notebook is not a terrible movie. I don't want to put it in that regard, but it's not a good movie, at least for me. And of course, that's going to have its own review. But it's just, for what it is, it's completely over the top or completely under the floor for me. It's that either it's way too much of one thing or way too little of another, and it doesn't have a good balance. It doesn't have a good feel to it. I hate that movie, and I'm sorry I'm bringing another movie in to review this movie, but I want to compare this to something that most people talk about, whether, you like love movies or not, but pretty much everyone has seen as, like, the love movie versus something that I actually like and identify with a lot more. And granted, this is, of course, the setting's a little weird. It's released in 2002. It's more of a 90s kind of a movie. And it's obviously during high school, which I am no longer in. Hell, I'm actually past my 10-year reunion. But I want to give some settings. So let me read what the plot was and what this movie had going on for it, because it's not too terribly long. And we'll get into what is going on here. So the plot in Beaufort, North Carolina. Excuse me. Just a clarification. My allergies are killing me right now, which is part of one of this. Is that I wanted to hit something that I could do with getting it up and haven't recorded all you watched, but on the other side, I'm just dying here a little bit on the inside, so I apologize. Anyway, in Beaufort, North Carolina, popular rebellious high school senior Landon Carter and his friends have partaken in underage drinking on school grounds. Oh, guys. All right. They lure a new student, Clay, I cannot say that, Geffard, I would assume, to a factory in the hopes of pranking him, with the facade that this is an initiation task into their elite group of friends. However, Clay becomes seriously injured, which is brought to the attention of the school principal through law enforcement. On the side here, I feel like, if I remember this right, and it's been a while, that like there was a pool within the factory, and he dives in, and he gets he gets his neck broken, but I can't remember exactly. But it leaves out that particular detail. In an effort to avoid law involvement, the school principal gives Landon the choice of being expelled from the school or completing several service projects which include weekend tutoring, janitorial duties, and participation in the school play. This is most definitely a 90s, early thousands kind of thing. This would never fly today, which kind of sucks because sometimes the older things do work a little better. School play gets me a little offbeat, but whatever. Choosing the latter, Landon is further Landon is further acquainted with Jamie Sullivan, a local Baptist minister's daughter. He never befriended her due to the status quo in high school, though he has known her most of his life. And you kind of pick up on this pretty quick. Landon's just kind of that, he's the popular kid kind of thing going on, and I think most ladies would say he's pretty good looking for his age and all that. He's just kind of that person that, is part of the preppy kids, as we used to call them back in my day. And so he's got this whole thing going on, but, he's kind of a fish out of water now. All the experience is going to go on. And so Landon begins to struggle with the play and reluctantly seeks guidance from Jamie, who agrees to help him on the condition that he will not fall in love with her. But Landon dismisses it as a foolish idea. She's got some confidence. And Mandy Moore, who plays Jamie, does a really good job at acting this. And I'm not going to shoot Shane West, who plays as Landon, down. He doesn't do amazing at this, but he does pretty good. And the story isn't not terribly bad, but the acting's pretty solid, particularly with Mandy Moore's portrayal of Jamie. Does very, very well. Anyway, so they begin to practicing together at her house after school, and a bond begins to form a bond begins to form between the two until Landon is rude to Jamie at a school to impress his friends, and Jamie realizes that Landon wants to keep their friendship a secret from others, so she decides to distance herself from him. From what I remember is that it doesn't play off exactly that way, but largely what happens is that you do get to see that they're, starting to like each other a little bit. And then Landon does that. And it makes her quite a bit upset. I don't remember the secret thing. Maybe that's just been too long since I watched it. It was more of just he was playing two faces and it really pissed her off is what I remember. But anyway, on the opening night of the play, Jamie astounds Landon and the audience with her voice and beauty. She's got a really nice dress on, going thing. And of course, it's Mandy Moore. She can sing. And so, going into that, when Jamie finishes singing towards the end, Landon impulsively kisses her just before the curtain closes. And of course, no one would know any wiser, so that happens. But afterwards, Jamie avoids Landon until his friends play a cruel prank on her, led by Belinda. Was that really her name? Holy crap. His resentful ex-girlfriend who wants them to reconcile despite Landon's lack of interest. I definitely remember the play. I definitely remember what goes on there, and it really makes Jamie's character really flourish. And of course, Mandy Moore looks amazing while doing it, and particularly how she sings. And there's a whole scene there, and I guess Landon, being a horny teenager, is overcome with emotion, or lust. But there you go. But the prank, I know there was a prank, and I don't remember what the prank was, but it really was not. It was something that you definitely would feel for. It's like, yeah, that's not okay. And this is actually the part where Landon's character really kind of becomes more of a protagonist that a lot of people would like, because you really start this movie off and you don't care for this character. He's just he's the preppy kid. No, most people don't root for the preppy kid, and especially because he's kind of an asshole, especially with being a jerk to her prior. But in opposition to his friends, he defends her, and she eventually warms up to him again. Acts like that was quick. But what largely happens here is that Landon does make an extreme effort that whenever this prank happens, he basically tells all of his friends off. He's like, you know what, I don't want to be your friends, all that. And if I remember right, he actually punches one of them. But I can't remember that for sure. But he basically just severs connections to her. And it really does impress Jamie the character of Jamie really impresses her that he's actually at least trying to do the right thing, or he does have a heart or a conscience, right? And whenever you flip sides for somebody, that does show it shows character and shows intent, is like where you draw your lines and whatnot. And so following this is that he defends her, and Landon tries to ask Jamie to go on a date, and Jamie reveals that she's not allowed to. You know, basically, Dad, Baptist minister. No, you're Baptist minister. Cannot talk. You're not allowed to date. That's not okay, even though they're in high school. But, you know, it's old-fashioned. And even then, I mean, hell, the 90s, early 2000s are considered old-fashioned at this point. So, in a general sense, is that, yeah, like, it's old-fashioned, but definitely something that I could see in my, you know, not too terribly long ago happening. But Landon does actually, you know, really start to show that he likes her. And so Landon visits the church in order to ask your father for permission. And really, and oddly enough, Jamie's father, the minister, is initially reluctant and hesitant, but he actually agrees to it. And there's a nice little conversation there where you get to see that interaction. And if I remember right, it is Peter Coyote who plays the minister, and we haven't seen him in a lot of stuff for a long while. But I did enjoy watching him quite a bit, and I wish he had done a lot more. Excuse me. I wish he had done a lot more in terms of involvement in film, but he was good, especially back in this time frame. He was cast for quite a few roles, and it was quite nice. Anyway, to finish this out, though, is that there's a nice little exchange there at the church, and you know, the father is like, oh, you know, what do you want? And then he already knows like a few of the things, and he raises it against him. But Landon pushes through, you know, shows that he actually does care to some degree, and so he actually gets his permission. So anyway, the first date is a success, which leads to another. I don't remember which date is the first one, but I do remember, and it was something that even I, as a kid, when I was watching this, I really appreciated. Never done it, but what he did is that he, as you know, they live in North Carolina, and he's like, hey, we're gonna go for a drive for a bit, and they drive for a while. And she's like, well, where are we going? And then he gets up to the state line. And of course, he's just like, all right, cool. You know, there's a line painted on the road, which, you know, I've never seen personally, but hey, whatever. She's like, all right, so what's the big deal? And it's like, right now you are straddling the state line between, you know, like the North Carolina state line. And she's like, okay, why? He's like, all right, you're in two places at once. And the reason why that matters is because she's very nerdy. She's very much a science person. And there was a thing had been prior, is that she was talking about how you can't be in two places at once. Well, he, being a little bit of a smart ass, but also being quite cheeky and, you know, a little bit suave, does this to where, hey, you're in two places at once, and it's a nice little date thing. And then another thing would lead on to it. Now, I don't remember if that was date 1 or 2, but I'm pretty sure it was date 1. I don't remember the other date or if any others, but you do get the sense the relation strengthens as they generally fall for each other, and all seems well. I do remember the scene, and it hits like a ton of bricks, even when you're, you know, young, and I didn't understand what was going on. But I'm sorry, I didn't understand the terminology, but I definitely understood something was up. And of course, getting older, it really creeps in, especially with dealing with the age of these characters. During a date, however, Jamie confesses that she is not making any plans for the future because she has leukemia and has not been responding to treatment. And yeah, this is one of those deals where I'm like, what? You know, Tyberius, why would you like this movie? The love interest is literally sick and possibly dying. Well, we'll get to that. I wanted to get that to more in the middle and closing costs. Audio Jack, thanks for being here. But I want to tag at that here going into it. But let's finish this up. Let's finish what happens, and then I want to talk about why I like this movie so much more than almost any other love movie. So to close this out or to finish this up, Jamie's condition grows worse, and she gets sent to the hospital. Landon drives off to beg for help from his estranged father, who is a doctor, which he's not. The father's character isn't brought up enough in this story. And then it's kind of out of left field. But he goes and asks him to help Jamie. Landon will eventually dry back in tears as he's disappointed at his father's inability to help. It's cancer, right? If you don't know what leukemia is, it's cancer. And I can't remember, right? Is it blood cancer? Yeah, it's blood cancer. it's really hard to beat. It's one of the harder ones to beat, from what I understand, and so definitely problematic. And so, in a nutshell, is that just not a lot you can do. So, upon learning of her condition, Landon's friends come. Excuse me, making sure I'm back. Yeah, upon learning of her condition, Landon's friends come to him and apologize for their past treatment of Jamie and offer their support. I remember the scene. I don't remember like how well it goes because I think Landon kind of just shows he's like, you know what, you guys suck and I'm done with you. And I do remember that. I'm pretty sure that is what happens. And if so, means a lot because it shows his transition as a character. I'm 90% sure that was what happened. Sorry, it's been a minute. While she is admitted, Jamie gives Landon a book that once belonged to her deceased mother and tells him that Landon is her angel. Unbeknownst to Landon, Jamie is given private home care by Landon's father to relieve her father's financial burden. So the father comes through, but that's more of a plot device, to be completely honest here. But in the general part, the book will play quite a bit of importance later on, particularly in the closing of the movie. But overall, is that Landon is going to be there and show that he cares, but the home care is more as a facilitator of the plot that she can still get around and move without being stuck in the hospital. So anyway, this is quite an endearing moment. Landon builds a telescope for Jamie to see a one-time comet in the springtime, and with the help of Jamie's father, he finishes it in time to give Jamie a view of the comet. This is actually a really nice scene that I like in this movie. And if you haven't seen it, it's just like you understand all this is happening. And if I remember right, she's getting a little bit where she's a little bit weaker, a little bit more frail. But they're having a picnic at night, and he, if I remember right, he brings out the telescope. And he's like, I want to show you something. He shows the comet. It's like, yeah, this only shows up like literally once in a lifetime, and you get to see it. Happy, nice things happen. And yeah, it's just a nice little, it's a very meaningful date scene that I do really appreciate. It's not something that's cliche in any regard. I do like this scene quite a lot. Excuse me. After that, it's when Landon asks her to marry him, and Jamie tearfully accepts. They will get married in a church that where her mother is married, and a lot of the synopsis doesn't really cover over with this, but Jamie really misses her mother, and I don't remember if she's seen her or if she remembers her from her childhood, or if she's been dead most of her childhood. I can't remember. It's either she was born in childbirth or she died as a kid or as a girl. But Jamie cares quite a bit about like her mother and her mother's legacy, and so going forward with that is that getting married in the same church means a lot to Jamie, and there's a nice little like overture in that scene that really hits in this movie. And so Landon reflects that their last summer together was spent as husband and wife, and that she would die soon after. And I believe that's more like an epilogue, or not an epilogue kind of thing, but it's more of a, what do you call it? It's not like a, it's not a monologue, it's not an epilogue. What is it called? It's kind of conveyed over. You don't really see any of this happen nearly as much as that you just Landon as the narrator talks about it. And it shows a few scenes over, but I can't remember exactly how that goes. Anyway, to finish this up, and this is actually where this movie kind of comes full circle a little bit. Years later, Landon returns to Belfort to visit Jamie's father, revealing that he had been accepted into medical school. Landon admits that Jamie was never able to witness a miracle, to which Jamie's father replied that the miracle was Landon himself. And hereafter, Landon expresses sorrow after Jamie's passing and describes their love like the wind. He can't see it, but he can feel it. Now, I really remember this scene, and it means a lot for this movie because, when stuff like this happens, usually people get estranged, they grow apart, or they feel so much pain that when they see the people that they were involved in, it's that they can't bear that. And this scene particularly has something going for it. And it has the book, and I got to see if I can find this real quick. The book has a passage in it that I want to really hit real quick, if I can find it. Let's see if I can find it. It's probably going to be towards the end. I'm sorry, I should have prepped this up earlier. She was reading he was reading the book. I don't remember if it was a Bible. I'm thinking it kind of was, but I just, I don't. Anyway, I can't quote it verbatim, but it is a passage about love, or it's a thing about love, and I can't remember what it says. It talks about a lot of its meaning. People talk about it talks about how love is neither jealous, it is kind, it is not envious, it is virtuous, that kind of thing. And it just kind of shows that even in the depths of bad things happening, that love is not what would lead you astray. It's what keeps you, better, decent, that kind of thing. And that's kind of the meaning that this movie gives you. And so, without the plot out of the way, this is why I want to talk about this movie. This is why I like this movie so much, is that given the synopsis of what that plot is, I want to talk about the actual meaning behind this movie and why I like it so much more as a love movie than any other. One, it's not overtly cliche. It's got some cliche things, high school love movie, that kind of thing. But the date scenes are a little bit different. Particularly the Star Picnic is absolutely wonderful, and it's something that I actually have done quite a bit myself, although I don't have a telescope. But it is one of my favorites, actually. Just going out, being alone with somebody that you really like, just looking up and seeing the universe as what it is. And if you get a place that doesn't have a lot of light pollution, you don't need a telescope. You can see the Milky Way for all that it is. And depending on how far you want to drive, I don't know where you guys are, but light pollution's a bitch. And just look up some photos with lower levels of light pollution, and you can tell how much more you can see. Out here, it's got a pretty good view, and it's a nice little thing that you can do for a little bit, as long as the mosquitoes or whatever aren't bothering you. Depends on what time of year. Late fall works here really well. All the bugs are kind of down. It's a little cold. You guys cuddle up for warmth. Works out really well. But anyway, I like this movie because you see a lot of character growth in Landon. That while I don't feel like it's the best acted, it's done really well. And while Jamie's character doesn't really change really at all, is that you get to see how love can make people better, and that is something that is thunder. Excuse me. That is something that really strikes true with me, and I think a lot of people, is that I see all these love movies and they're just like, oh, I love you and I miss you and all this other shit, and I'm just like, God, don't care. This movie does really well in showing the character growth and the change that a person can have when you are in love, and it can make you do certain things. Now, again, this is a positive change. I wouldn't mind seeing a few love movies that do the negative changes. And I mean, you can talk about Revenge of the Sith if you wanted to, but yeah. Completely other conversation of its entirety. But it shows love. It shows how it makes Landon as a character make a very positive change in his life, to where it shows with the epilogue there, towards the end, that he's going to medical school, he's going to make something of his life, and he's going to be, at least in a lot of ways, what people would be consider a good man. And I'd love to see some kind of thing that would follow up with that, but whatever. Jamie's character doesn't get the growth, but she gets, if you will, a lot of personal dreams that a lot of people have. Is that a lot of us do believe that life is short. You don't get a lot of time, and sometimes it's not that much at all. You don't know if it's going to be tomorrow. You don't know if it's going to be today. You don't know if it's going to be 10 years from now, or 30 years from now, or 60 years from now. We have no idea. But whenever we do have a life, we want it to feel like it's worthwhile, that we experience something great of it before we pass on. And Jamie's character actually shows this to a large degree, and it embodies that, is that, she has leukemia. She's not looking forward to a life that will be incredibly rewarding. She doesn't have really a future to look forward to. But Landon comes along, does fall in love with her, and they fall in love with each other. And it gives meaning to both of them in a fundamental way that, if you will, she can die happy. And I'm actually spoiling up a little bit about this because it actually does mean a lot. is that a lot of people, I think, can get to the grave and they won't be very happy with their lives. And we can talk about how people chase after all these things that mean nothing in the end. But in a general sense, is that Jamie's character really shows me the typical archetype of a person who dies happy, even having a short, limited life. Somebody who got to live their life and experience something wonderful within their life that they really feel happy they get to be a part of. And so, in that general nutshell, I really like that character as well. Some of the supporting cast could be a little bit better. Landon's mom is in this, and it isn't put in the synopsis there at all. But Landon's mom is actually a really good character and supporting character because she clearly cares for him. She clearly deals with him a lot within this movie that you would see if you watch it. But in a general sense, is that she doesn't play a lot in the pivot, but she plays a lot as a supporting character, as that she cares. She's concerned, particularly whenever the kid gets hurt, that Landon's definitely going down the wrong path, and wishes the best for him. Going forward into this is I really enjoy Jamie's father as a character. Is a very, very well done character, and while he does not have a lot of screen time, he does steal the show in whatever scene that he's in. He's just a good actor, good presence on screen, and so that works really well. Just again, shout out to Mandy Moore. She plays Jamie very well in this, and her acting is great. Shane, I'm not a bad actor by any measure, but just doesn't sell the character amazingly well for me. And it's not really towards the end that you really kind of like, all right, you're cool. You did this movie good. But in a general sense, is that it could have been a little bit more. And I see you there, Wes. What do you want to chime in here with? Anyway, for me personally, I hit quite a bit of that. The one thing I still want to do is that I don't like a lot of these love movies that have the happily forever after kind of thing going on. It's not to say that they're bad movies, but they're too nice, and they're too good. And I like this movie for a little bit of a morbid reason. And that is, for a lot of people, even, and especially me personally, is that love can die, but moreover is that love goes on even when the person isn't there anymore. And this is what I really like about this movie, is that while they convey the concept more with the death of Jamie, which is a little bit more impactful in a different way than what the average person would be, which is, you usually just go through a breakup, is that for me, at least personally, is that you grow to love somebody, you share parts of your life with them, and then one day they're gone. Whether it's a breakup or something horrible happens or what have you, is I'll read that here in just a second. Eventually, what happens is that there is a day where love ends, or if you will, the interaction of love ends. And one of the problems that I kind of have for me personally is that even when the relationship ends, is that the love for me never ends. Of all the 4 people I have fallen in love with, I still have some modicum of like very warm feelings for them. And some of these relationships really ended quite terribly. And there's a degree where I would be like, you know what? The 2 of them I would openly say I kind of wish I could have picked that I had fallen in love with, and actually it wouldn't have, because I didn't really get to explore having a relationship with them. They were friends, actually, that I never got to date. And the other 2 kind of crashed out really hard. One of them I do still care for quite a bit. The other one I wish I could just deadpan, but it's still there because I shared quite a bit of my life with that person. And what I'm trying to get here full circle, and I'm just explaining it from my own personal bias and my viewpoint, is that there is a time where love ends, but the feelings and the emotions and the memories are always there. And that's why I love what this movie is as a title, and you can see that within the implications of the movie itself, is that the movie's not about the story as start end as much as is what you have left over. Is that love always leaves you something beyond what the relationship had. And you could always, do the whole it's greater than the sum of its parts conversation. And I definitely feel that way towards this movie, and I definitely feel this way towards life, is that love most oftentimes doesn't have a happy ending. People get divorced, people split up, people go their separate ways, people grow apart. But it's always, or at least for me, it's always with you. It always leaves some kind of print on you to where whether you have like the worst breakup ever, or you have somebody that you were with for a while and you just grew apart and eventually you guys go your separate ways, is that it leaves that impact on you that can reverberate for the rest of your life. And I mean, I know if you really can get an old timer to talk about it, they still remember if they had multiple loves in their past life, people they really cared about, they still remember them. And they're still, you can just see it in that little smile. Some folks still have that, still have those fond memories that they still carry with them. And of course that gets a little complicated when you get into marriage and what goes along down the line. But in a nutshell, I like this movie quite a lot because of its meaning. And that meaning is that, even when love ends or stops, is that it still leaves an impact with you and it still changes you in specific ways. And how that explores is, largely up to you, but it can be incredibly positive. And there's definitely some things that I really like in how they explore it. So if you haven't checked this movie out, go watch it. Now to read what the West dude was saying, that guy that plays Shane's character, he is pretty rough and lacked refinement, which is surprising for someone who spent years on a TV show, Dawson's Creek. I never watched Dawson's Creek, heard a lot about it, but yeah, it was a little rough acting. So I'm glad you agree with me. And it's like I have the movie on DVD. Who the fuck has DVDs anymore, Wes? I'm kidding. But no, this movie is not a bad movie. It's actually my favorite love movie. And it's not because it has happy endings and all the things that most people associate with that. Is that it is... it's a romantic drama, which is something that I'm happy to see. In Hollywood, you can do a few more of these. It doesn't hurt anything. I don't care for romantic comedies that much. You can do them, but you have to do them right. And most movies are not good romantic comedies. And I'm very sad that most of the 2000s and most of the 2010s were dominated by romantic comedies, because it really did romance a disservice. And I would like to see something that is a far more philosophical and a far more impactful far more impactful stories that would bring back dramatic romances quite a bit. And of course, with a coming of age story, that's not a bad thing. And so this movie has a balance that I think is sorely lacking within the movie community as a whole, and something that needs to be really re-explored again. And if any movie I would say actually deserves a reboot, this might be like literally in my top 10. This movie can have a real big impact, and there's only a few changes that I would make that would really make this movie stand out among the test of time as a great movie. And Wes was getting it. Like, everyone remembers the pastor father, or the Baptist father. He's a great actor and conveys this really well. I think it was based on a book. It is based on a book. And so, not to say that the book is bad. Of course, there's always changes between a book and a movie, and I can't speak about how the book is. I haven't read it. But there's only a few things that I would change about this movie that would make it a little bit more impactful. The supporting characters need a little bit more meaning in their own, so that you have like layers that all kind of build up in a crescendo. That would help this movie quite a bit. But if you haven't seen this movie, definitely go check it out. It's definitely one of my preferred, and I quite like it. I quite miss it, and I probably need to watch it again myself. But this is why I like this movie. It's one of my favorite love movies, if not the favorite love movie. And I know a lot of people will talk about, oh, well, this movie could be better, or this movie's better, or this. You're welcome to send me your recommendations, but I swear if you're one of these people, it's like, oh, The Notebook, I'm just going to like rip my eyes out of my sockets. So sooner or later, we'll do a Notebook review. I will hit that. I hate that movie. It just sucks. So without further ado, this is going to be the end of this review. The stream is not going to be ending. I'm going to get ready for some Geopol stuff. So always feel free to check out all the other content that I'm making, because we're doing Geopol tonight. We're doing Mask Off tonight. There's plenty of stuff here on the streaming side of things that I'm about to get ready to do. The only problem going forward is just I can't, on the streaming side, for anyone who's watching this on Twitch, I just can't be there consistently. It's like Sundays are the only days I have off. and permanent, and then everything else is just, am I tired, am I exhausted, what have you. And I've got a lot of homework and work to do outside of this. So again, I'm going to make out the final notes here, is that if you do like what I do, you want to help me continue doing what I'm doing, I'd appreciate, what's going on. We've got a patron on the Patreon now. We haven't got to 2 yet, but we finally cracked 1, so I'm not going to complain. So Patreon's now up and running, doing things, Patreon things. If you want to help support me on Twitch, my sub count is down. Wes is one of my greatest contributors, and I'll give you a shout out here in just a second, Wes. But you can help me on Twitch. You can help me through PayPal donations, all that kind of thing. Basically, if you like my content, if you're willing to tip, I'd appreciate a tip. That's all I'm really getting at. And there's multiple options to do that. Links are down below. And just to give out the shout out for those who have helped me and those who are still helping me, we have Fallen Or, Andy Wagner, the West Dude, which is good to see you, buddy. Julia, Ron Cleveland, Drew, Ace Man, Kamikaze, Samantha, Leah, Revolt Rise, and Shadow Fox. We've got about 2 people that are getting pretty close to being up on that list again, but we're not quite there yet. Right now, the current criteria is $50. $50 that have been spent onto my community. And if anyone's wondering, if anyone's just like, oh, why would I send money? I've gotten over $2,000 revenue since I started streaming last year. So in the period of 18 months, $2,000 from this. So this is actually pretty serious. This usually pays my car bill every year. So if you're willing to help me out a little bit more, or just help keep a stable, consistent income for me, I'd really appreciate it, guys, because that means that I have to worry about everything less, and I can worry about this a little bit more. And so, again, appreciate it. Without further ado, this has been Reviews with Tyberius D, and the stream is not ending. We'll be moving on to Geopol next. But until then, take care, guys. We'll catch you next time.